right, this is a great way to end the week. Eric, John, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Great to be. I'm glad you're here, and I know I already have found out that you are leaders who care and have the knowledge behind it. But we're gonna have to show the rest of the people that you are. So no pressure, just we just go for it. But best way to start, as always, is if you could give brief intros. Now I have to do this with more men than women, actually. There's two key words, two key things there. Brief is the first one, and second is I'm not asking you what you do. I'm asking you about who you are. So if you can share where you're from originally, where you are now, what you're comfortable about sharing about your family, maybe something you've never told anybody ever you want to reveal to the world. That always gets to be fun a little bit, but just a little bit about you. So if we go alphabetical order by first name, Eric, why don't you start?
Okay, happy to. Thank you, uh, Mark, and glad to be here. So I'm Eric Evans, originally from Philadelphia, grew up in Philadelphia, um, and I always wanted to get away from Philadelphia. I'm not quite sure why, maybe because I like Mickey Mantle and I wanted to go to New York.
No, there you go. That's why.
So from an early part of my life was to try to get to New York. I went to college outside of Philadelphia at a small liberal arts school, Dickinson College in
Hmm.
central Pennsylvania. Very, very old school, uh, founded by Benjamin Franklin and Benjamin Rush in the 1700s, early 1700s, right after Harvard was founded. So about 2,000 students. I had a great education. I had a great time. I enjoyed it. I made great friends, people who I'm still friendly with. But the professors ruled the school in those days, so there was no career development, there was no recruitment, unless you wanted to go to a Fortune 500 company like Procter and Gamble uh, or General Motors, and I didn't have any interest in that. But um, I was very active on campus, so someone told me, "Well, you ought to be in public relations." I said, "I am in public relations." I know everybody here, so I'll look into it. So I looked into it, and public relations wasn't anything that I wanted to do. I didn't want to write articles every day for the New York Times
I was
or
wondering, did you not like the public part or the relations part?
oh, well, that's not what the that's not the business.
No,
That's
I
not what.
know. I'm going to pause you for a second, if I may. A little bit about family, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
okay with
Okay.
that.
Yeah, good. Thanks. So I have two sisters. I'm the oldest. I have a young sister, one sister who's about a year and a half younger, and another one about 12 years younger. They still live in Philadelphia. We're still very close. They have kids. I'm close with their kids.
Cool.
Personally, I have two sons. One's 25. He's an actor, and I have one 36 with my three grandchildren who live in Lancaster, South Carolina. So I don't get to see them as often as I'd like. And I'm pretty sure that's the family. Okay, and I'm married. I'm married to a wonderful woman from Argentina,
Oh, muy
and
bien.
have a great relationship with her two kids, my two stepchildren, a
How's
boy.
your how's your salsa dancing?
Uh, it's okay if I don't kill myself.
No, thanks for sharing that. John, what about you?
Well, I started out in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, a suburb of Milwaukee, and graduated from high school. I went on to the Air Force Academy. Was there for 13 months and was medically separated on what I found out later was a misdiagnosis.
Hmm.
I was in a class with a young man by the name of Lance Sijon. Uh, we both came from Wisconsin. We knew each other going through the competitive process. Lance always beat me. He was the primary appointee, and I was the secondary choice. Lance went on to win a Congressional Medal of Honor and died as a POW, and has always been close to me.
Hmm.
Um, I wear a bracelet on my arm, which I've worn for 50 plus years, with Harley Hall's name on it. I met Harley as a Blue Angel back in the 70s. Harley was the last pilot shot down in Vietnam.
Wow.
on the last day of the war, alive on the ground, and didn't come home with the other POWs.
Wow.
And I'm a four-time cancer survivor, and every time I'm having a kind of a hard day and hard time, I just look down and say, Harley would trade places with me in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Suck it up and move on. And I've given away dozens of these bracelets to other people who are having a hard time, and Harley is still serving today, helping them. Um, Left to Boom's a startup. I have two startups going though.
Well, I'm going to pause you because I want to learn what about your family and the stuff like
Okay, we're
that.
going there.
Okay.
My other startup are my two great grandchildren.
Oh, good. All right. You got me on that one.
So here I am with another startup. I've got two great grandchildren. One's three. One has just had her first birthday.
Wow.
So I never thought that I would ever be in that small group of great grandparents. It's really exciting. If you thought grandchildren are fun, wait till you have great grandchildren. It just
Well, that
uh,
makes you a great grandfather.
so I was a great grandfather. My grandkids are great. I remember seeing a bumper sticker years ago that said if I knew grandkids were this much fun, I would have had them first.
Yeah, there is a special thing about grandparents that we all are impacted by, I think, as kids and stuff. No, that's fantastic. So you mentioned kids. What were you both like as kids? Were you putting Legos together? Were you on some kind of some tech stuff with computers, making stuff, breaking stuff? Eric, what about you as a kid?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question.
I only ask good questions.
Yeah, so we moved from the center of Philadelphia to the suburbs when I was in the fourth grade. Um, so when I lived in Philadelphia, we in the house that we lived in, there was a basement, and in the basement, so this is pre fourth grade. I recruited some of my classmates and taught them how to make bird cages, which not bird cage, bird houses,
Hmm.
and sold them to people around the neighborhood. Uh,
Wow.
I didn't make them at all. They made them. The
You
guys.
subcontracted.
Yes, I was subcontracting at the age of I don't know, 10.
Hmm. That's pretty good. And did they have any birds in the bird houses at the end
I
of the
didn't care. I didn't care. I didn't know. I just wanted to sell them. I wanted the money. But when we moved to the suburbs, my life changed dramatically. And I spent a lot of time with my friends. My real interest was in tennis, which I took up when I was 8 years old, uh, watching other guys play and teaching myself how to play by watching them. And that's pretty much what I did. I played tennis at middle school, played tennis in high school, played tournaments all summer, and uh,
I
and
can
continued to play tennis till I was 60 years old.
I can relate to that. I miss the times we had as kids in the basement of Montreal, and all the stuff we did in basements was so much fun. John, were you in the basement too?
Yeah, I was. I've always been fascinated by science, and I mean the stuff that I did in the basement, I'd get arrested for
Oh,
today. I,
good.
I always liked things that made noise and and went flash and bang and that sort of thing.
I'm sure your mom loved that.
Yeah, well, or smelled bad, and you had chemistry sets and that sort of thing. And I've always had a fascination with animals. So I would bring home wounded animals and that sort of thing. And
That's cool.
I found out that in the wild, I can walk up and touch wild animals. And so I still can do that to this day. I mean, I go out in the national parks and I don't touch bears.
Good move.
But the deer and all of that sort of thing, or other animals will approach me. I have no idea why. I don't know if I smell good or smell bad or something, or I do bathe occasionally, so I did
Well,
just.
good for
But
us to know all that.
I've had that excitement of science, and my godfather, who was a PhD aerial biophysiologist, and worked on the life support systems in Project Mercury and Gemini way back in the day, gave me a book when I was young called The Excitement of Science by a physicist from the University of Chicago, John Rader Platt. I still have the copy.
No.
And a very short book. And I've had that excitement of science ever since. I mean, so that's from, back in the 60s. And so that's kind of stayed with me throughout my life. So yeah, that came out of the basement as well.
Well, I love that, and just keep it on those lines with you, John. Um, what was your first entry? What was your first experiences in work life, if you will? I mean, I know it was Air Force and everything, but and then subsequent to that, that impacted you the most to head down the path that you ended up heading down. And
Yeah,
we'll
I,
get
I
into
think
that path after, but what was some of the things that happened?
well, I think probably the one that indirectly had the most impact is when I graduated from the University of Wisconsin. I had a couple of majors. One of them was in geology, and the only job I could get as a geologist was driving a truck in Saudi Arabia logging oil wells. And that wasn't terribly excited. And I ended up getting hired by the Boeing company, and I wrote the tech manual for the 747 fatigue test system.
Well,
And we had the number six bird, and we pasted a bunch of sensors on the bird, 600 of them. And we had acres of computers, PDPH, digital system PDPH. And computers in those days didn't have screens, and we didn't have keyboards. We had acres of printouts and decks of cards. So I was introduced to computers back in the 60s. We did use some in when I was in school. You had to buy computer time. You got grants for computer time. And I didn't have any grants, so I had to reduce data by hand. So I did learn how to do that. But my introduction to computing happened in the 60s. And so I went on to law school as a change in career. And I became a computer literate lawyer. So I was doing digital uh, forensic accounting before it had a name, taking apart very large fraud cases, which is kind of where I met Eric. We were in Oklahoma City. I was tax counsel for the Penn Square debacle when that bank came apart and became a see-through, and I was gathering up oil resources and things, and Eric was out there doing turnarounds, and we were both staying at the Skirvin Plaza in Oklahoma
wow.
City.
Well, that gives me a good segue. Then I always find it interesting the threads from what we do as kids, but also things and whether it's tasks or projects or jobs that along the way we may not realize how impactful they were, but they are, or what we even learned from them, intangible or tangible from them. Eric, what about you? What were some experiences that were impactful early on that you see now led you to the path you're on?
Well, first of all, my father was a dentist, a root canal specialist. He was one of the first root canal specialists in the country, and he was very, very good at it. So he had a really good practice. And my parents would typically say, "Well, whatever you want to do, go do it. But why don't you become a dentist with your father? So if it doesn't, so if you want, if what you want to do doesn't work out, you can go into practice with him and make a living."
Uh-huh.
And I didn't like that at all. That was against my grain. I don't want to be a dentist. I don't want to work in people's mouths. I find it disgusting.
Hmm.
Unless
Plus,
I
the
have,
suicidal rate is very high.
yeah. And I
Oh,
most
down in
of
the
all
mouth.
I do not want to work with my father in a 10 by 10 room looking into somebody's mouth and then into a canal in their teeth.
Hmm.
That'll be my life. I have to be out. I have to be out and about and find out what this world has and that I can take part in. So that was the first thing going on. And when I graduated from Dickinson, uh, I got a job. I was lucky. There was an ad in the paper that said, wanted, recent graduate, well groomed, well spoken, well dressed.
A lot of wells.
I called my mother and I said, "Do you think this is really an ad? This is really this is for real because that's me. That's me." I can do all that. I meet the criteria. And she said, no, it's not a real job. It's just to come on for a search. Uh, okay. It was a real job. And the job first took me to Philadelphia and then took me to New York. And that's how I finally got to New York. Terrific job. I won't go into the details, but I loved it. But the company filed bankruptcy a year later, and I was left in New York without a job, without a real skill base from going to college. So I just had to find my way, and that's what I did. What I knew was I knew I played tennis. One of my friends built an indoor tennis facility in Newport, Rhode Island, and of course I went up there and we hit the ball a couple days. And I said, "Well, Smitty can do this. I can do this too." And I did. I built a four-court indoor tennis facility in Connecticut. Uh, I wasn't going to go south to Philadelphia because I didn't want to be there. And that was about as far north as I could go because I only had a motorcycle. I didn't have a car. And I could go up and look for a place and do my due diligence, in one day. And I can be back in New York in my apartment the same day.
So I have
So
a
I,
quick question though. So you were well spoken, well dressed, and something else well, and then you didn't have a job anymore. How did you manage to build that?
I figured it out. I
Who
had a,
funded
I
it?
had, I had a friend, and who I played tennis with on the team in high school, who went into the business of building tennis courts. So he was going to build my four courts.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I knew a family in Philadelphia who was very wealthy through my parents, and I knew their son, and he was looking for something to do. So he put up all the money.
So things happen for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I was in business. It did not work. I
Okay.
didn't know the three rules of real estate: location, location, location. It was beautiful. It was right on Candlewood Lake, and it was a beautiful tennis facility. But it was in a valley among these hills. So in the winter, which was the purpose of it, in the winter, if you had snow or sleet, you could get there by just sliding down the mountain to the club, but you couldn't get home.
No,
You couldn't get back up the mountain.
that could be an
I,
issue.
I didn't figure that out because I didn't know about location, location, location. And another facility was built not too far away, and they just beat me. But fortunately, the guy who gave me the money was not the smartest tack in the box because our deal was 50-50. So we had to agree on everything. So I wasn't about to leave, and he wanted to take it over because it wasn't doing well, and he had to pay me to get out of there. So I made a few dollars, and that was my experience. It was a great experience. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun, and I continued as a young man in tennis. I had the good fortune of meeting a professional tennis player, a very well-known professional tennis player. I met his manager and he hired me for a job working for him, building tennis or putting together tennis facilities around the country where he would be there 7 days or 3 days and teach people how to play tennis. He was Aussie, and either he or another Australian pro would be there teaching the people who came to those tennis classes. And I worked for him for a long time, and he ended up moving me to uh, you look like you're going to ask a question.
I was going to ask you. So it shows me, and the lesson you're talking about is you learn from a lot of these things that happen, but you also noticed they were happening, and you made something happen versus just being distressed or just or all that. And
Mark, I am an opportunist. I'm a
right.
classic opportunist, and I take it when an opportunity comes. It's most likely that I will get involved in it. Now, every opportunity that came my way was not a terrific opportunity, and quite frankly, I learned most from the opportunities that went bad. The
Yeah,
ones
that's
that were good,
kind of
great.
where,
I
yeah, kind of
learned from
where.
those.
Sorry, go
But
ahead.
but the ones that didn't work out were the ones I learned the most from. Um,
And you hear that from entrepreneurs all the time.
yeah.
In fact, in sports, which I do a lot of analogies in sports, it almost always happens that teams that win championships lost the championship game sometime prior, and they really learned what it takes to win. And so if you look at it the right way, it's part of the journey, so I remember the scholar. Remember the scholar Kobe Bryant? Call him a scholar. He once said, you should all have a dream, talking about it could be the NBA championship, it could be this, it could be that, or other things, and go for it. Um, but he also noticed, and Arthur Ashe said this too, he also noticed that only 600 people were playing professionally in the NBA at the time and type of thing. So, but he said you should have that dream, but to tell you the truth, the dream is right now, he would say, in all the stuff you're doing, that is the dream. And I think that's the lesson you're both talking about. I know, John, you said you met Eric around that time. When did you both get into talking about technology and potentially even talking about security and so on?
Well, I worked in and around financial services security for most of the last 40, 50 years. And Eric was doing turnarounds. I ended up writing a piece of the tax law, Section 368A1G,
I
which
know
is
that one.
which is the famous G reorg, which allows an acquiring company to acquire the tax attributes of a debtor company. Keeps the company alive, and you end up financing it with the tax benefits largely while it's recovering. And so I became basically adept in that business and became very interested in the information side of it. There's a famous physicist by the name of John Wheeler, probably the most famous physicist of the 20th century not to win a Nobel Prize. But his mantra was that the universe is made up of information. And his license plate, when he went from Princeton down to the University of Texas, became "It's Bits." And so that kind of fits with the background I have behind me, which is a non-orb weaving spider web with dew on it. And that's, interesting randomness and interesting information from the universe. And that kind of drives what we do. So I became, from that beginning, looking at identity security, individual identity security in financial services. My first patent was in that space. It's still being used today at the new accounts desk, looking for the intentional identity fraud and screening new accounts for that sort of malevolence and anomaly. And we've made the shift recently to look at anomalies in machine identity or device identity. But I have been immersed now for 30 years or more in the identity side of information.
Well, I find
Uh,
it's interesting. By the way, I'm a great interrupter, in case you hadn't noticed. It's interesting, how things evolve. And I also find it fascinating. I think people sometimes forget that something doesn't just happen bam like that. Like AI was machine learning way, way, way decades ago. And you talked
yeah.
about being involved way, way ago. And which is kind of fascinating and exciting in a way, what you see during the years and where it goes to. And before we get to Left the Boom, Eric, talk about a little bit what John was talking about, how when you guys connected, how did you, doing turnarounds, get involved in this arena as well?
Well, John and I got John needed some capital. I raised some capital for his company.
Hmm.
And that's how we got back together. There was a number of years where John was doing his thing and I was doing my thing. I was working on Wall Street. And so we got back together again. Um, and it's continued ever since. I wanted to say something that's I think important.
Sure.
In terms of as I said, I'm an opportunist. Um, I do believe there's a plan for me. Okay. I'm not a particularly religious person, but things happen, and if I run into an opportunity and I can take advantage of it, I'm going to take advantage of it, good or bad.
Hmm.
And I could write a book on situations in my life that have come up like that. Maybe one day I'll do that. But the other thing that's important, I got it. I interviewed. I wanted to get to Wall Street. I think I made that clear. And I was looking for a job on Wall Street, and I got an interview with a guy by the name of Jack Nash, who was like a Hall of Fame investment banker on Wall Street. And I went for the interview. Someone told me before I walked into his office, Eric, be careful. It's going to be somewhere around 62, 63 degrees in there. Jack likes to keep it cold to make anybody who comes in his office uncomfortable. He's got what was known in those days as a quotron, which just is a running list across the screen of what the stocks are doing on an exchange that day. And it's Eric, it's attached to the ceiling of his office. So he's not going to look at you. He's going to be looking at that quotron all day long.
Nice.
So, but hang in there. He's a brilliant man.
Great interviewing skills.
Okay, so I went in, he interviewed what I wanted to do, and he said, okay, Eric, I'm going to give you some advice. Investment, so you can compare investment banking to having children. Okay, you raise them, you never know how they're going to turn out. So you never stop. You stay with them and you help them along the way until they find out and start doing what they want to do with their lives. And that's the way investment banking is. Okay. Most people quit. It's too hard. It's a lot of stress. And you never know how it's going to turn out. A deal is going to turn out until you're sitting at closing and you close the deal and you've done it and it's over. But that'll be your choice. You can either give up along the way or you can stay with it. So if I combine, the opportunity, good or bad, with the ability to not give up, which I don't. I mean, it has to be a flat out horrible situation, no horrible people, which I hopefully will eventually realize this is not going anywhere. But otherwise, I stick with it.
Right.
There's a really good chance if I stick with it that it's going to work. Okay, somehow, and I've been doing that for 45 years. So I have those characteristics in me. I don't know if it's my DNA or what I've
Sure.
learned over the years. And I had to learn it by myself because I wasn't going to learn it from my father. He was stuck into his people's teeth. He wasn't, he was a good businessman. He did well.
But I
Uh,
find that dentists they used to have a hell of a marketing program. After you left the dentist, they gave you a sucker or some candy. And I never
yeah.
understood, except great marketing for,
If I could follow up on a little bit of what Eric said,
yeah,
on a similar path, my path has always been kind of how can I help? If there's a problem that needs to be solved and you solve the problem, everything else will follow. And the bigger the problem and the harder it is, the more fun it is to solve. And doing things that aren't challenging are no fun. I mean, the bane of my life is boredom. Last thing who wants boredom? I like excitement. And if the more challenging, the more difficult, the failures along the way, overcoming that is what drives you. We are truly mission driven. I mean, what the mission that we're on right now is that all of critical infrastructure, all of civilization is based on the ability to exchange securely and trustworthy information. If we can't move information between the people who need it and the entities that need it, everything comes apart. And I don't care what segment you're in. I don't care if it's healthcare, whether it's finance, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to securely move information. And and we can't do that today. I mean, we're stuck in a system where the information loses its trustworthiness. We have massive data breaches on a daily basis. We are in a system that was designed to work in the 19th century
so you gave me an
with
opportunity. You made a good segue here into what we want to talk about, the highlight. I want to say something that relates to what you're saying. The people in general, human beings in general, need to know that they're safe and secure as the foundation to do anything. And so I think it's even beyond, obviously, information is a huge part of that, but it might even be bigger and better than just the information. It's that we feel safe and secure in who we are, because otherwise there's no foundation to the house.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
crumbling. How did you guys come together on this? Why the name Left the Boom Technologies? And then let's talk about the differentiation.
Yeah, that's mine. Um, Back in 2013, there was a massive data breach at the Office of Personnel Management. And 22 million people who had their background information, investigation information, who held security clearances were held at OPM. And that was breached by the Chinese who were in the database for 13 months before discovery. And even to this day, we don't know everything that happened. We don't know the data they modified. We don't know all of the data they exfiltrated. It basically tore apart our security clearance infrastructure, mine included. And so that was a huge motivation. And so I talked to a number of my colleagues in and around the intelligence community and says, who's knocking on your door with a solution to this problem? I mean, we're doing this everywhere. It just happened to be this time it was security clearances, which is a huge national security brick in the foundation. And the answer I got universally is we aren't doing anything about it. I mean, we don't have a fix for this. There's nobody knocking on our door with a solution. And so, I said, what are you doing about it? And they said, well, we'll probably just turn the volume up a little louder. And so my colleague, John Monet, who's an advisor to us, he's the only one in this group who's older than I am. And John was kind of cue to the James Bond. He made interesting gadgets in the science and technology shop at the agency.
Wow.
And so we looked at this problem for about a year, and what we decided and discerned was that the problem was we put all of our trust into credentials that could be stolen. And so when I asked colleagues up at the fort at NSA, what are you guys doing about breaking encryption now that encryption is getting stronger? And they basically said, we don't break encryption. We just steal the keys like everybody else because it's easy to steal the keys, which is how we break into things rather than trying to, break into them with computing power. We just steal the keys. So we said, well, what if we could have keys that didn't matter if you stole them? We'll give them to you. We use them once, we use them, they're gone, and it doesn't matter. So the other thing we decided that we had to do is we had to take the user out of the mix. Digital environments operate at a speed that users can't. Humans, if I ask you to change your password 10 times a second, your hair would, suddenly burst into flame and, you'd be flopping around on the floor. But you could do that easily with my watch. It doesn't take a lot of computing power. Well, we live in a digital environment. Everything happens digitally. But we are bringing 19th century assumptions to our digital environment and just digitizing them.
Mm-hmm.
So we said we can't do that any longer. We have to actually create a 21st century paradigm to do this. And we have to move the structure from right of boom after the explosion happens to left of boom to prevent it. So instead of a reactive way of solving the problem, we went to prevention. And right now, we're standing out there alone. I mean, you tell people about this and they just say, oh, you can't do that. I don't even want to talk to you. I got a problem I got to fix today. I can't even worry about trying to prevent it. Nobody's been able to do that yet. How are you better than,
And how long ago was
Amazon?
this? How long ago did you realize this and recognize it and initiate it and all that?
Well, it's been about a 7-year journey. I mean, if you go back to about 2015, 18, by the time we figured this out, and we iterated it. We've gone through kind of the first generation. There's about a dozen patents behind it, and we're now moving on to the next generation, and we're about to take it to the market, which is about average for this sort of technology level of maturity. And because we're old guys, we didn't want to be, two kids and a dog in a garage with a good idea on the back of a napkin that, go out and try and build it. We actually went and proved it first. It's copywritten, it's been pen tested. The initial funding came unsolicited from Los Alamos National Labs. Their chief architect sits on our board. We've got people who keep us honest and who are rigorous in making sure that we can do what we say we do. And so,
No, on that for a minute, I'm gonna just hold that thought. So, Eric, aside from friendship with John and experiences with John, what made you see that as a good investment, as something that you was important enough for you to be involved in?
That was easy. I think John's explained it. I mean, this is life changing. So I can easily go from life changing to opportunity. Okay. Um, I didn't know what was going to be involved, how long it would take to get to the market and make, get someone to even license this. I had no idea. But as time went on, I began to learn about the technology and what it does and what it can do and how important it is. And John's role in it, which is so different than mine, but I do understand it to the point that I can understand it. I can't put together a architecture for new technology. That's not my field, but I understand what it does and why it's different and why it's important. Um, and as things go, time went on. John and I've been. I think John and I got together. It's well over a year. It's gone on 2 years ago, working together on this, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. So, you know, I say to myself, well, why are you doing this? Well, there's a number of reasons. John has gone through it, in terms of the mission that we're on to help the world be a safe, secure place for people.
Hmm.
And it's very valuable. This is really valuable stuff. So, and I owe it to Jack Nash, who was freezing me out of his room and never looked at me once, that I don't quit on this. That's something I learned along the way in what I do. And I'm interviewing people for my personal business all the time, interns mostly, and I tell them this story, this is what you're going to get yourself into if you really want to move on in the investment banking world. So get ready for it.
Do you keep the room cold too?
No, I don't.
Well, I'm glad you answered that because I think it's important teams win championships. I think it's important that obviously you've got expertise in whatever the scenario is, but in this case, cybersecurity, technology, etc. But also that people know why it's important and what the outcome is. Everybody doesn't have to know how to do it. That's why you have teams. You have a goalie, you have defensemen, you have forwards, teams win championships. So I appreciate getting both your perspectives because I think that's what it takes. John, what is the differentiator that people need to know that Left of Boom Technologies brings in this arena?
well, I think there's basically two of them. Number one, we are left of boom. In that we are preventing the event from happening rather than trying to pick up the pieces quickly afterwards and put the puzzle back together. So we step in and prevent it. The other thing that we do that I think is critically important, and it's a personal quality I have. I have the ability to see time. I see the universe in time. There are about 8% of the population actually visualizes time. And I didn't know that everybody didn't do it. I only recently discovered that everybody doesn't see time. A lot of people see it as color or things, but I mean, I just see it as a component. So with static credentials, which is what everybody uses, the average life of that credential is 200 days.
Hmm.
And so that's the amount of time an adversary has to steal the credential. And, in our case, the average lifespan of our credential is measured in milliseconds. And only while it's actually being used. The credential doesn't come into existence until it's being used. And then once it's done being used, it disappears.
Hmm.
So we have reduced the threat window from days to basically nothing because it doesn't exist outside of its one-time use. So
Pretty major.
that's kind of the two big things. We've removed the vulnerability. So there is no vulnerability of a theft of the credential. You can't steal the trust from our system. So that's the big differentiator. So we looked at it and said, well, there's a vulnerability. Let's see, can we get rid of the vulnerability? The problem goes away if you remove the vulnerability. And doing that, the approach that people take is social engineering, phishing people to give something up. Well, if the user has no contact with the system, they have nothing to give up. You can't phish them. So we take away the threat of the user. The user cannot be victimized by this. So I mean, and it can operate on any kind of device with any sort of computing power at all.
So would
So
the best clients be anybody, or the best clients like large hospitals, large corporations? Could it be entrepreneurs as well?
well, I mean, my house, I did an inventory. My house has like 38 digital devices in it. It's a network. And my phone is connected to, literally millions of endpoints. So all of them can be protected. And we're looking primarily as where is the big threat first, and that's actually at the enterprise level. We don't care about scale. A big something with 1 million endpoints is just as easy to deal with something with 10 endpoints. Scale is not a challenge for us. Um, the original backbone for our software is open source from Netflix, so it scales to millions of endpoints for the rental of movies. So we don't care. And since it's all software deployed over the internet, scale is not the issue. But if you can remove more risk at scale than you can doing it at the small level.
Right.
So for us, we're looking at scaling this to enterprise levels first. People would think, well, don't you want to start small and go big? No, I want to do the few. Where there's a few, it's easier to deal with than trying to deal with the many. So for me, the scaling problem is fewer customers rather than many customers. The number of endpoints is not the scaling challenge. It's the number of customers you have to deal with. So the enterprise who has the bigger problem and the bigger risk is really the target for us, because the technology is exactly the same in both cases.
Yeah, it makes sense because big corporations, if they do get hacked into, that is impacted in national security as well, not just their business. And hospitals is life and death stuff. When they get hacked into, that's probably the most important if you look at it because it's the most human. No, I find it fascinating. And so now you're getting ready to go to market, you're getting ready to grow. Is that where you're at? And
Yeah.
what is AI, or how is AI impacting you at all?
Okay. Yeah. There are two ways. Number one, I started using AI when it was expert systems or fuzzy logic way back in the day. We use AI in a way that most people are thinking about anthropic AI. We use swarm AI, the AI that of hive intelligence or that schools of fish or flocks of birds use. So our endpoints out on the periphery, when they're attacked, they inform each other that I've been attacked. It's like, watch out for this, watch out for that. And so that swarm intelligence gathers information, informs the network it's on. So we're using AI at the periphery as opposed to the kind of large language model, which uses it at the core. We have a smart fence around your enterprise.
Hmm.
Um, and so because that's where your defense is, that's the place your AI ought to be deployed first, not down in the brain in the middle. You ought to be deploying your defense, your AI out at the edge. And that's what we do. And it's simple AI. It's so simple that you can put it on an IoT device. So, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to have the huge amount of computing power that you need for large language model AI. We're not looking at a lot of data. We're using AI that creates an awareness amongst the devices at the edge. They become self-aware and inform each other and do basically, threat analysis. So they know when they're being attacked. They say, "Ooh, guys, watch out over here," that sort of thing. So
I love it. It seems right time, right place, um, needed, obviously, right now with everything going on. So congratulations for what you guys are doing. It's super exciting. In LA we say we got to leave them wanting more so we can do a sequel. So I have one just one more question for you for this. And I'll start with Eric. With everything we've talked about and everything that's gone on, COVID in 2020, sometimes that to people, many people, COVID feels like it's yesterday and years ago at the same time. And all that you're doing now. Eric, start with you. What are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
Is this an age question?
No, it's not an age question.
Well, I think when you're at John and I's ages, it's very different. I think we think about things that are very different than my 25-year-old.
Well, I'm not asking a 25-year-old. I'm asking you.
Right, right. I just wanted to be sure. So,
Okay.
uh, quite frankly, is to stay as healthy as I possibly can. I work on it every day. Okay. Um, and and I want to be able to use my mind in challenging ways every day. My body, I'll deal with it. If something hurts, I'll deal with it. Uh, and I pray that I don't get anything health-wise catastrophic if I'm lucky.
And what are
So
you
far,
most hopeful for?
so
Or is that what you're most hopeful for?
that I can live as long as I can. I'm very selfish about what I want to live with, why I want to live as long as I can. Um, did you see The Landman? You ever watch that movie?
I don't
With
think
Billy
so.
Bob, Billy Bob,
Billy Bob Thornton.
yeah, Billy Bob Thornton. He says something in there that, I mean, it's very good. It's very, very good. And he says something with his daughter. His daughter has a boyfriend. She's like 18, and the guy leaves her, drops her, and she's crying and so forth. Daddy, is this the way it's always going to be? No, baby, it's not. It's the last guy who's the most important one, and you're nowhere near that. So that's what I'm blessed with. I've had a bunch of relationships with women, been married a couple times, and I was just lucky. I mean, really, the story is very lucky to have met my wife, and I want to spend the rest of my life with her as long as I have it.
Well, that's awesome, and thanks for sharing
And
that.
that's the honest question. Now I got to do something to keep me young and active and challenge my brain, and here he is.
There he is. All right, keep moving. John, what about you? What are you most grateful for? What are you most
It's
hopeful?
kind of two versions of the same answer. Um, I'm most grateful that I can contribute and help. Um, and I have a nascent DAF, donor advised fund,
Hmm.
and if we're successful here, most of what I would gain would go into the DAF to help people who are less fortunate. Um, and that's my hope, is that we are successful and that I can help more people, and inspire people. I mean, I think it's much more fun to give a present than to receive a present.
It is.
And you know, the the thing I'm most grateful for is that I can contribute, and the thing I'm most hopeful for is that I can continue to contribute. And along Eric's lines, I am married to my high school sweetheart. We started dating, back in high school, and carried her books, and here we still are.
Nice. So, still carrying those books, I hope. Well,
She's an,
I'm
she's an amazing woman. John's very lucky.
I bet. I'm grateful and hopeful for the same reason. I think I'm grateful I have new friends. That's a good one right there that I think and with you guys and I'm grateful and hopeful that you are leaders who care about making a difference in the world and I think that's what we need more of. So thanks for being that. Thanks for being on the series. I really appreciate it and you guys take care.
Thanks
Well,
for
thanks
having
for
us,
the
Mark.
invitation, Mark. It's fun to tell the story. It's like bragging about my great grandchildren.
Absolutely. That is the best thing. Thanks.
Sure.